In January, I had a conversation with Kevin telephonically while he was overseas. And in that conversation, that was ultimately memorialized in a report and handed to EPA for record, he made numerous threats, was very agitated, was venting to me about some issues he had with his pay. And I was attempting to assist him by telling him that this is an easy fix. You need to contact various folks in the agency, and they will then address those concerns. So it's nothing that you need to get upset about. And he continued. And he began to threaten the EPA, specifically the administrator and the chief of staff, that he was going to talk to the press and everyone he could about how, and he used a very interesting word describing how effed up the EPA was, and how effed up the administrator was, and how effed up the chief of staff was. And I found that to be very, very bizarre. Here's a person who is a political appointee under the Trump administration. If you have differences, it should be aired through your chain of command. At this time when he was making these allegations, he was the deputy chief of operations, deputy chief of staff of operations. So to call a law enforcement official of the agency and to make these threatening statements, I felt uncomfortable. I have to be honest with you. He called again the next day. And I repeated that, unfortunately, at this time, based on his tone and his allegations, that I had to report the information. So in January of 2018, it's important that the American people know this. This person, Kevin, and I had a difference, and a very serious difference. It takes us to another incident which occurred the following month, where I'm asking for his placard that allowed him to park in the EPA facility and his credentials because of his position. And our Director Henry Barnett, who's the head of the Office of Criminal Enforcement, Forensics and Training, provided him these credentials. They were very specific on the use and when they can be handed to such a person and what their responsibilities were and were not. And we simply asked for those back. And when I asked for those back, I had another agent on the phone call with me. Because of that January call, I was very uncomfortable with Kevin's tone and behavior. We asked, how can we facilitate in securing those credentials? Kevin immediately elevated it, said he was going to call the White House, and puts on a White House staff person from EPA, who's signed to EPA, Charles Munoz. And later, after Charles hearing the same ranting and raving that I heard, admitted that he was glad to be on the call so that he can advise senior management, senior officials of the EPA of this person's behavior. Look, I was told what to do. You received something through the law enforcement channels of the agency. You are a senior official of the agency. We're trying to embrace you like we have embraced every other administration and officials. But at times things don't work out. It happens, and therefore you need to be respectful. He could not handle that. So there's a lot more to these allegations and why I believe they occurred. But I believe in principle it occurred because of that January call, where I, at that point, advised him that I was going to inform senior management officials, my career staff, managers, and the political of this call. That was very, very disturbing.
In January, he told you that he had information that he was going to go to the press with and to damage the administration, all because of a pay snafu?
That is correct, sir.
And that's when a lot of the negative stories started coming out, specifically ones like a major one in the New York Times that targeted you and accused you of single-handedly entering a $30,000 security contract with foreign security agency, would you even be able to do that?
To answer the question, that is a false accusation. Don't know how or where that issue came up or how it was developed, but it is false. And to do something like that, a person at my level and grade in the agency would not have the authority to do so. You would have to have senior authority to do such a charge.